Long ago, ancient whispers reveal the hidden truth. The battles we wage against ourselves are illusions, born from shadows we can dispel. Peace isn't a distant prize, it's the quiet core within, waiting to awaken. Before we dive in, share your time zone and where you're tuning from. Tonight, embark on tales that twist fate and forge resilience, mirroring forgotten wisdom to ignite your spirit. No riddles to crack, just echoes that stir the soul. Breathe deep, let go, and join the journey. If these stories captivate you, like and subscribe to Versus Whisperer for more transformative whispers. Chapter 1: The Warrior and the Mirror Lake. In a hidden valley cradled by jagged peaks that pierced the clouds, there lay a lake so perfectly still it was known as the Mirror. 4 centuries, warriors, pilgrims, and lost souls had sought it out, drawn by ancient tales that claimed the lake revealed not your face, but your true heart. At the edge of this valley lived Keed, a samurai who had once been feared across 3 provinces. His blade had carved victory in 100 battles. His name alone had silenced war councils. Yet now, at 45 winters, he lived alone in a small hut of cedar and stone, sharpening no sword but his regret. Every dawn, Keed would descend the narrow path to the Mirror Lake. He no longer wore armor. His once proud topknot had been cut years ago. He moved like a man carrying an invisible weight, shoulders slightly bowed, eyes fixed on the ground. For 7 years he had come to this lake, sitting on the same flat rock, staring into the water. And every day the lake showed him the same thing: a warrior drenched in blood, eyes burning with rage, hands that could not stop trembling even in victory. The reflection never changed. The ghosts of those he had slain stood behind him, silent, accusing. No matter how long he sat, no matter how fiercely he willed the image to shift, the lake refused to lie. One crisp autumn morning, when the maple leaves burned crimson against the sky, an old wanderer appeared on the opposite shore. She called herself Myra. Her hair was white as mountain snow, her back bent like an ancient bow, yet her steps were light, almost playful. She carried no staff, no bundle, only a small clay cup tied to her belt. Keed watched her warily from his rock. Strangers rarely found this valley. Those who did usually left quickly, unsettled by what the lake revealed. Myra crossed the shallows on stepping stones as if she had walked them 1,000 times. She stopped a respectful distance away and bowed, not the deep bow of a servant, but the slight inclination of one equal to another. "May I sit?" she asked. Keed's hand drifted instinctively toward the short sword at his side, the only blade he still carried. Then he caught himself and nodded once. Myra settled on a nearby stone, untied her clay cup, and scooped water from the lake. She drank slowly, eyes closed, as if tasting something exquisite. Keed could not stay silent. "The water is cold," he said gruffly. "And bitter to some." Myra smiled without opening her eyes. Only to those who expect it to be sweet. She opened her eyes and gazed into the lake. Keed tensed, waiting for her to flinch, to gasp, to see whatever horror the water showed her. But Myra's face remained serene. "What do you see?" he demanded, voice rougher than he intended. "I see water," she replied simply. "Clear, deep, and perfectly still." Keed's breath caught. "That is all?" "That is everything." He leaned forward, anger rising like old fire. "Then the lake lies to you. It has never lied to me. It shows me what I am, a killer. A man whose hands are stained forever. I see them every day. The blood. The faces. I come here to face the truth, and the truth never changes." Myra turned to him, her gaze gentle but unflinching. "And has facing this truth brought you peace?" Keed's jaw tightened. "Peace is not for men like me." "Perhaps," Myra said softly, "because you mistake the reflection for the lake itself." She picked up a small pebble from the shore and held it up. "Watch." With a gentle flick, she tossed the stone into the center of the mirror. Instantly, ripples exploded outward. The perfect surface shattered. Keed's dreaded reflection fragmented into 1,000 distorted pieces, blooded faces twisting, dissolving, reforming in chaos. He recoiled as if struck. But Myra remained calm. "Look now," she said. The ripples spread, overlapped, interfered with one another. The warrior's image became unrecognizable, broken, confused, monstrous. Keith's heart pounded. You destroyed it. No, Myra replied. I disturbed the surface. That is all. They sat in silence as the ripples slowly, gradually began to fade. The circles widened, thinned, lost their energy. Inch by inch, the chaos settled. And then, almost imperceptibly at first, the reflection returned. First vague shapes. Then clearer forms. Finally, the mirror was whole again, perfect, undisturbed, reflecting the crimson maples, the vast sky, the two figures on the shore. Keith stared, throat tight. The blood, he whispered. The ghosts. They are still there. Are they? Myra asked. Look again. Carefully. He forced himself to look, not with the burning eyes of hatred he usually brought, but with raw, trembling attention. The reflection showed a man in simple robes, hair streaked with gray, face lined not just by war but by sorrow. Behind him stood no ghosts. Only trees. Only sky. Only the gentle curve of the valley. His hands, resting on his knees, were clean. Keith's breath shook. But I know what I've done. I remember. As do I remember every stone I've ever thrown, Myra said. Yet the lake does not hold onto the ripples. It receives the disturbance, responds perfectly, and returns to stillness. The depth remains untouched. She picked up another pebble and held it out to him. Throw. Keith hesitated, then took the stone. His fingers remembered the weight of steel more than pebbles, but he threw. Again, ripples. Again, the surface shattered. Again, his past seemed to surge upward, blood, screams, fire. He watched, heart hammering, as the chaos played out. And again, slowly, inevitably, the ripples faded. The mirror restored itself. You are not the ripples, Myra said quietly. You are the lake. The disturbances come, memories, regret, shame. They arise naturally when conditions are right. But they do not touch the depth. The depth watches, receives, allows them to pass. Keith's voice was barely audible. How do I become the depth? I have tried for years to calm the surface. To stop the stones from being thrown. I meditate. I fast. I punish myself. But the ripples always return. You cannot stop life from throwing stones, Myra replied. Battles end, but memories remain. Choices echo. Regret arises. That is the nature of water, it responds. The practice is not to prevent ripples. It is to know yourself as the lake that holds them, rather than the ripples themselves. She stood, brushing smooth her worn robe. When the next disturbance comes, and it will, notice this, there is something watching the ripples. Something that is not disturbed. That watcher is the depth. Rest there. Myra bowed slightly and began walking back across the stepping stones. Keith called after her, voice cracking. Will you return? She paused, looked back with a small smile. The lake is always here. So is the depth. You do not need me to return. Then she was gone, leaving only the faint sound of her footsteps on stone. Keith sat until dusk. Ripples came, memories of a village burned, of a friend cut down by his own blade, of a child's eyes widening in terror. Each memory a stone. But for the first time, he noticed something else. Beneath the chaos on the surface, there was stillness. Beneath the broken images, there was clarity. Beneath the trembling warrior, there was depth, vast, silent, untouched. He did not become peaceful that day. The ripples still hurt. But something shifted. He began, slowly, to identify not with the disturbance, but with what watched it. When he finally stood to leave, the mirror showed a man walking away from the shore, older, weary, but no longer drowning. The lake held the crimson sky, the first stars, the quiet valley. And beneath it all, the depth, patient, inexhaustible, waiting. Music swells gently, then fades into silence. This tale reminds us that our past does not define us forever. The disturbances we carry, regret, guilt, pain, are real. They arise. But they are not the whole story. We are not only the ripples of our worst moments. Beneath them lies something deeper, clearer, more enduring. When we stop fighting the ripples and begin resting in the depth that watches them, something changes. Not the past, but how we carry it. If this story touched something within you, if it stirred even a small ripple of recognition, please like this video and subscribe to Versus Whisperer. Your support helps these ancient whispers reach more hearts in need of them. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter. We continue this journey together. Good night. May you rest in your own quiet depth. Chapter 2, The Archer and the Eternal Dawn. High in the mist-shrouded peaks where the air is thin and the world below disappears into cloud, there stood an ancient training ground carved into the mountainside. 4 centuries, master archers had come here to perfect their craft, drawn by legends that claimed the dawn light on this summit revealed the true path of the arrow. Among them was Ryu, once the greatest archer in the emperor's service. His arrows had decided battles from 1,000 paces. Kings had begged for his allegiance. Yet now, at 50 winters, he lived alone in a small shelter of bamboo and stone, his legendary longbow gathering dust in the corner. Every morning, long before first light, Ryu would climb the final steep path to the eastern ledge. There, on a flat outcrop that overlooked an endless sea of clouds, he would sit facing the horizon. He no longer drew his bow. He simply waited for the sun. For 9 years he had followed this ritual. The climb was brutal, icy rocks, treacherous winds, lungs burning with cold. But Ryu never missed a dawn. He told himself it was discipline. In truth, it was punishment. Because no matter how perfectly he sat, no matter how still his breath, the sunrise never revealed what he sought. The light came, the sky shifted from black to indigo to gold, and still he felt nothing but emptiness. One frozen winter morning, when the path was glazed with ice and the wind cut like arrows, a figure appeared behind him on the ledge. It was a young woman named Sora, barely 20, wrapped in a simple traveler's cloak. Her bow was short and unadorned, the kind used by mountain hunters. Her quiver held only 7 arrows. Yet she moved with the quiet certainty of someone who belonged on this peak. Ryu did not turn. Strangers were rare here. Most who reached the summit left quickly, overwhelmed by its silence. Sora sat a respectful distance away, unstrung her bow, and waited with him. The sky began to lighten. Stars faded one by one. Finally, Ryu spoke without looking at her. You wasted your climb. There is nothing to learn here. Sora's voice was soft but clear. Then why do you return every day? Ryu's jaw tightened. To remember what I lost. He expected her to leave. Instead, she remained silent until the first edge of sun touched the distant peaks. Then she asked, What do you see when the light comes? Nothing, he said bitterly. Colors. Light. The same every day. No meaning. No revelation. Just another sunrise I do not deserve to witness. Sora nodded as if this was exactly what she had come to hear. She stood, strung her bow with practiced ease, and nocked an arrow. Ryu finally turned. What are you doing? Watching the dawn, she replied. She drew the bow, not in the formal stance of a master, but naturally, as if the bow were an extension of her breath. Her eyes were not fixed on any target. They were open, soft, looking toward the rising sun. The arrow flew. It arced high into the brightening sky, a dark silhouette against the gold, and vanished into the light. Ryu stared. There was no target. No distance to judge. No enemy to strike. Why? He demanded. Sora lowered her bow. Tell me, master, did the arrow hit? Ryu frowned. There was nothing to hit. Exactly. She sat again beside him. The sun cleared the horizon now, flooding the clouds below with fire. Ryu's voice was rough. I was the greatest archer of my time. Every arrow found its mark. Battles turned on my precision. And then, one day, I missed. He did not need to say more. The story was known in every province. The final battle, the enemy general within range, Ryu's arrow loosed perfectly, deflected by a freak gust of wind. The general lived. The war dragged on for 3 more years. Thousands died. Ryu had never drawn his bow again. I climb this mountain every dawn, he said quietly, waiting for the sunrise to show me why I missed. Waiting for meaning. For forgiveness. For some sign that it was not my failure alone. But the light comes, and goes, and reveals nothing. Sora listened without judgment. Then she asked, when you were the greatest archer, what did you see just before release? Ryu closed his eyes. The memory came instantly. Everything. The target. The wind. The distance. The breath of the enemy. I saw it all. And in that seeing, the arrow knew where to go. And now? Now I see nothing. I search for meaning in the light, for some grand pattern, some hidden truth that will explain the miss. And because I search so hard, I miss everything. Sora smiled gently. You are still trying to hit a target that isn't there. She stood and offered him her bow. Ryu recoiled. I swore never again. This is not your old bow, Sora said. And there is no target. Reluctantly, he took it. The wood was light, unfamiliar. The string hummed softly under his fingers. Stand, she said. He stood. Now, do not aim. Do not search for meaning. Just watch the dawn. Ryu faced the rising sun. The light was almost blinding now. Sora stood behind him. Feel your breath. Feel the string. Feel the mountain beneath your feet. Do not try to see anything special. Just see what is here. His arms trembled as he drew. Old habits surged. Calculate distance, read wind, find the mark. But there was no mark. He fought the urge to lower the bow. Sora's voice was barely a whisper. The arrow does not need to hit anything to fly true. Something in Ryu cracked. He released. The arrow soared, high, free, into the blazing light. It disappeared not into failure, but into vastness. For the first time in 9 years, Ryu felt no judgment. No calculation. No desperate search for meaning. Just the flight. He lowered the bow, hands shaking. Sora took it back gently. The dawn does not reveal hidden truths, she said. It simply reveals what is already here. Light. Color. Warmth. The world turning. When we stop demanding that it explain our pain, it shows us something else. Presence. Direct. Immediate. Complete. Ryu stared at the horizon. The sun was fully risen now, the clouds below glowing like an ocean of fire. I spent years, he whispered, trying to force the sunrise to give me answers. I was so busy searching for meaning that I never saw the light. Sora nodded. We miss the dawn not because our aim is poor, but because we are aiming at yesterday's target. She turned to leave. Ryu called after her. Will I see you again? She paused at the edge of the path. Every morning you climb this mountain, I am here. Not as a teacher, but as the one who reminds you to watch without waiting for revelation. Then she descended into the mist. Ryu remained until the sun was high. No grand insight came. No cosmic forgiveness. But something quieter settled in him. The next morning, he climbed again. And the next. He no longer waited for the sunrise to explain his past. He simply watched it arrive. Some days he drew the old hunter's bow Sora had left behind. Some days he did not. The arrow, when loosed, no longer needed to prove anything. It simply flew. Music swells with uplifting strings, then softens into quiet resolve. This tale whispers a fierce truth. We often miss the beauty and presence of this moment because we are still aiming at yesterday's target. Searching desperately for meaning in our pain, for answers that will finally make the past right. But the dawn does not owe us explanations. It offers something far more powerful, direct experience. Light without commentary. Life unfolding without needing to justify itself. When we release the demand for revelation, we finally see what has been here all along. If this chapter stirred the archer within you, if it loosened even slightly the string of old regrets, please like this video and subscribe to Versus Whisperer. Your support carries these stories higher, like arrows into the dawn. Turn on notifications, the next chapter awaits. Rest well. May tomorrow's light find you watching, not waiting. Chapter 3, the thief and the empty shore. Along a desolate stretch of coast where the sea met sheer cliffs, there was a small, forgotten island barely larger than a warrior's training ground. Rocky, windswept, with only a few twisted pines clinging to crevices and a single stunted cedar at its center, it had no harbor, no fresh water, no shelter. Fishermen avoided it. Smugglers feared its currents. Yet for centuries, whispers claimed that those who spent 3 nights alone on the empty shore returned transformed, or never returned at all. Cato had once been the most notorious thief in the capital. His fingers could open any lock, his footsteps left no trace, his smile disarmed guards faster than any blade. Palaces, temples, merchant vaults, he had taken treasures from them all. Gold, jewels, sacred relics. He told himself it was for survival. Later, for thrill. Finally, just to prove he could. But one night, 10 years ago, he had stolen the wrong thing, a small jade amulet from the private altar of a powerful lord. The theft sparked a manhunt that burned villages, executed innocents, and left rivers of blood in its wake. Cato escaped, but the weight of that chain of suffering followed him like smoke he could never outrun. Now 40, he lived as a wanderer, taking only what he needed, giving away most of what he earned. Yet sleep evaded him. Every closed eye brought faces, children orphaned because of the chaos his theft unleashed, families ruined. No amount of repentance erased them. One autumn evening, guided by old rumors, Cato paid a silent fisherman to row him to the empty shore. He carried only a waterskin, a small bundle of rice, and a worn cloak. No weapons. No tools. Nothing to steal, nothing to hide behind. The fisherman left him on the rocks as dusk fell. 3 nights, the man muttered. Then I return, if you still want to leave. Cato watched the boat disappear into the mist. Then he was alone with the wind and the endless sound of waves. The first night was torment. With nothing to do, nowhere to go, no lock to pick, no plan to devise, his mind became a thief in its own house. Memories stole in, the gleam of the jade amulet, the Lord's rage, the screams from burning homes. Guilt, shame, self-loathing, they circled like gulls, diving again and again. He paced the small island until his legs ached. He shouted at the sea until his voice broke. He tried to meditate as he had seen monks do, but every time he closed his eyes, the faces returned sharper. By dawn, he was exhausted, curled beneath the cedar, whispering, I deserve this. I deserve worse. The second day brought a different thief, justification. As the sun climbed, his mind began rewriting the past. The Lord was corrupt. The amulet was already stolen wealth. The violence would have happened anyway. I was only one small link in a longer chain. He clung to these stories like driftwood, building a raft of excuses to float above the pain. For hours he argued with invisible accusers, defending himself, minimizing, bargaining. But the island offered no audience. The waves kept crashing, indifferent. The wind carried his words away. By evening, the stories felt thin, hollow. The raft sank. He sat on the rocks as night fell again, empty-handed. On the third morning, something changed. Cato woke to find the wind had stilled. The sea lay almost flat, reflecting the pale sky like a mirror. No waves broke the silence. He walked the perimeter slowly. The island was smaller than he remembered, barely 200 paces across. Every rock, every tuft of grass, every twisted root now familiar. With no distractions left, no defenses, no stories to tell himself, he simply sat a day. And in that sitting, the thieves in his mind grew tired. Thoughts still came, the faces, the fire, the jade gleaming in moonlight. But now, with nothing to do and nowhere to run, he did something he had never done before. He looked directly at them. Not to justify. Not to punish himself. Just to see. He saw the boy he had been, hungry, clever, desperate for respect. He saw the choices made in darkness, one leading to another like footprints in sand. He saw the suffering that followed, vast and real. And beneath it all, he saw something else. The simple fact of being here, alive, breathing cold sea air, feeling the rock beneath him, hearing gulls overhead. No role to play. No treasure to steal. No identity to defend. Just presence. The layers he had carried, thief, survivor, penitent, monster, began to feel like cloaks laid over something simpler. Not a new self. Not forgiveness handed from the sky. Just awareness. Raw. Ordinary. Undeniable. He noticed how thoughts arose and passed like clouds across the still sea. How feelings surged like waves, then receded. How even the heaviest guilt was a movement within something larger that remained untouched. The island had taken everything from him. No distractions, no escape, no props for his stories. And in taking everything, it had left him with what could not be stolen. On the morning of the fourth day, the fisherman returned. Cato stood on the rocks, cloak whipping in the freshening wind. His face was weathered, eyes red from sleepless nights, but something in his posture had shifted, lighter, as if a burden had been set down not by force, but by recognition. The fisherman rowed close. "You coming?" Cato looked back at the island one last time. The cedar stood twisted but alive. The rocks gleamed with spray. The sea stretched endless in every direction. "Yes," he said quietly. As they rowed away, Cato asked, "Do many return changed?" The fisherman shrugged. "Some return. Some don't. The island doesn't change anyone. It just removes what was hiding them from themselves." Cato nodded. He understood now. The world would try to cover that simplicity again, with roles, regrets, stories, distractions. But he had touched something that could not be covered forever. Awareness itself. Empty of inherent identity. Vast enough to hold everything without being defined by any of it. Like the empty shore, it needed nothing added. Music rises slowly, waves building, flute weaving through, then resolving into deep stillness. This tale cuts to the heart of transformation. We search for a better self, a redeemed self, a self finally worthy of peace. We try to build it with good deeds, punish it with guilt, or hide it behind distractions. But the empty shore teaches something fiercer. True change is not about becoming someone new. It is about seeing what remains when all the layers, the thief, the hero, the failure, the penitent, are stripped away by silence and solitude. What remains is not nothing. It is presence. Simple awareness. The ground that holds every story without being captured by any. You do not need a physical island to touch this. Any moment of true stillness, when distractions fall away and you meet experience directly, reveals the same shore within. If this chapter echoed in the hidden places you carry, if it loosened even one old chain, please like this video and subscribe to Versus Whisperer. Your engagement helps these stories reach those still searching in the dark. Turn on notifications. The journey deepens with each chapter. Rest deeply tonight. May you touch, even briefly, your own empty shore, the vast awareness that needs nothing stolen, nothing added, to be complete. Chapter 4, The General and the Unyielding River. In a wide valley carved by centuries of relentless current, a great river ran swift and untamed. Its waters were born from distant snow peaks, gathering strength as they descended, carrying stones, trees, and the echoes of storms. Villages lined its banks, respecting its power, building no dams, no walls, only bridges high enough to let floods pass beneath. Here lived Takeshi, once the empire's most celebrated general. His strategies had turned impossible defenses into victories. His armies moved like the river itself, unstoppable, adapting to every obstacle. Yet after 30 years of war, he had retired to a simple hut overlooking the river, seeking the quiet he had never known on battlefields. But peace eluded him. Every day, Takeshi walked the riverbank, watching the current rage against boulders, carve new paths around fallen trees, surge in spring floods and slow in summer drought. And every day, something in him resisted its lesson. He admired the river's power, yet feared its change. Good seasons brought fertile silt to fields, bad seasons washed away homes. Victories in war had felt permanent, defeats temporary. But life, like the river, refused such distinctions. One late summer afternoon, when the water ran high and wild after mountain rains, a wanderer appeared on the opposite bank. He was an old man named Ren, dressed in patched robes, carrying only a walking stick whittled from driftwood. Takashi watched as Ren crossed the swaying rope bridge without hesitation, even as it bucked in the wind. Ren bowed when he reached Takashi's side. "I have heard of the great general who now tends gardens instead of armies," Ren said. "May I walk with you?" Takashi nodded curtly. He was not fond of visitors. Most came seeking war stories or strategic wisdom. Few understood his silence. They walked upstream along the rocky bank. The river roared beside them, white foam breaking over submerged stones. Ren spoke first. "You watch the river every day. What do you seek in it?" Takashi's voice was gravel. "Order. Permanence. A way to hold what is good and push away what destroys." Ren smiled faintly. "And has the river taught you how?" "It teaches the opposite," Takashi said bitterly. "It takes homes, changes course overnight, drowns the careless. It respects no plan." They reached a place where the river narrowed, forcing the current into a furious channel. Massive boulders stood in its path, ancient, immovable. The water crashed against them, spraying mist high into the air. Takashi stopped. "See there. The river fights the stones. It rages, it erodes, but the stones remain. That is strength, standing firm against the flow." Ren studied the scene, then bent and picked up a smooth, palm-sized river stone. Its edges were rounded, its surface polished to a sheen. "This stone," he said, holding it out, "has been here longer than either of us. How many years do you think the river has flowed over it?" Takashi shrugged. "Centuries, perhaps. Yet look how smooth it is. No sharp edges. No roughness left." He placed the stone in the current at their feet. The water immediately parted around it, swirling, caressing, flowing on without pause. "The river does not fight the stone," Ren said. "It accepts it completely. Flows around it. Embraces every contour. And in embracing, it shapes." Takashi watched the water glide over the stone, unresisting, unstoppable. Ren continued. "The stone does not fight the river. It stands firm in its nature, solid, rooted. It allows the water to pass. And in allowing, it is shaped." He gestured downstream, where the river widened and calmed, depositing silt that nourished rice fields. "When you resist change, you are like a stone trying to dam the river. You exhaust yourself holding back what cannot be held. Suffering follows." Takashi's fists clenched. "Some things must be held. Honor. Loyalty. The safety of those who depend on you. If I had accepted every change in war, I would have lost everything." Ren nodded. "And yet war ends. Armies disband. Victories fade. Even the greatest general cannot command the river of time." He picked up another stone, this one jagged, newly broken from the cliff above, and tossed it into the current. The sharp rock tumbled, caught in eddies, battered against others. It resisted the flow, fighting every turn. "See how it suffers," Ren said. "Banging, scraping, breaking itself smaller. All because it resists what the river offers." The jagged stone finally lodged against a larger boulder, stuck, creating a small dam of debris. Water backed up briefly, then surged over and around, dislodging it. The stone tumbled on, bruised and diminished. Takashi felt the lesson strike deep. "I spent my life being the rigid stone," he said quietly. "Resisting loss. Clinging to victories. Trying to force outcomes. And when change came anyway, defeat, aging, retirement, it broke me harder." Ren placed a hand on his shoulder. "You are both stone and river, Takashi. Rooted in your essence, awareness, presence, the unchanging ground of being. Yet flowing through circumstances that never remain the same." He pointed to the great boulders in the channel. "Their strength is not in fighting the water, but in allowing it. They remain themselves while everything flows around them. Over lifetimes, they become smoother, more beautiful, not despite the river, but because of it." Takashi stared at the polished boulders, gleaming in the spray. "How do I practice this?" he asked. "When loss comes, death of friends, fading strength, the world changing without me, how do I not resist?" Ren smiled. "Notice both. The part that wants to cling, that is natural. But also notice the awareness watching the clinging. That awareness is the stone, stable, unmoved by the current of emotions and events. He stepped into the shallows and let the water rush around his ankles. And when you feel rigid, fixed, unyielding, notice how your experience is actually flowing. Thoughts change. Feelings shift. Sensations come and go. You are always the river, even when you feel like stone. They stood in silence as the sun lowered, turning the water gold. Takeshi felt something loosen inside him, a lifelong tension between holding on and letting go. One more thing, Ren said as they turned back. The river's greatest gift is its polishing. Every difficulty, every loss, every change, it wears away what is rough, unnecessary. Not to destroy you, but to reveal the smoother truth beneath. That night, Takeshi sat by the river long after dark, listening to its endless voice. Change came, as it always did, a friend's death the following spring, a flood that took part of his garden, his own strength waning with age. Each time, the old resistance rose. But now he noticed the awareness beneath it, steady as the ancient boulders, allowing the current to pass. And gradually, almost imperceptibly, the rough edges of his heart smoothed. Not broken by the river. Polished by it. Music swells with the steady power of flowing water, then resolves into deep, accepting silence. This tale flows to the core of our struggle. We crave permanence in an impermanent world. We resist change, clinging to what feels good, pushing away what hurts. Yet the river teaches a fiercer wisdom. True strength is not rigid opposition to life's flow. It is rooted stability that allows movement. The unyielding core of awareness that remains untouched while thoughts, emotions, circumstances rush through. When we stop fighting the river, when we allow it to shape us, we are not weakened. We are refined. The difficulties of life become the patient current that polishes away roughness, revealing something smoother, clearer, more essentially true. You are both the stone and the river. Rest in the stone when the current rages. Flow with the river when rigidity binds you. If this chapter moved something within you, if it softened even one sharp edge, please like this video and subscribe to Versus Whisperer. Your support keeps these ancient currents alive for those still fighting the flow. Turn on notifications, the next chapter carries us deeper. Rest well tonight. May you feel the steady depth beneath whatever flows through you. Chapter 5, The Empress and the Twin Lights. In a high valley ringed by ancient stone walls, an old palace stood half-ruined, its tiled roofs open to the sky. Once it had been the seat of emperors, now only wind and moonlight moved through its halls. Here lived Akira, the last empress of a fallen dynasty. At 48, she carried herself with the dignity of one who had commanded nations, yet her eyes held the weariness of someone forever at war with herself. She had ruled wisely in her time, building schools, ending famines, forging peace. Villagers still spoke her name with gratitude. But within her, two voices never ceased arguing. One voice celebrated her light, her compassion, her courage, her vision that had saved countless lives. This voice she honored publicly, in ceremonies and decrees. The other voice whispered of her shadow, the ruthless decisions, the enemies crushed, the compromises that left blood on quiet hands, the cold ambition that had sometimes silenced mercy. This voice she buried deep, ashamed, fearing that if it were seen, all her good would be tarnished. Every evening, Akira climbed the cracked stone steps to the palace's highest terrace. From there she could watch the sky shift from day to night. And every evening, the inner war resumed. One twilight, when the sun hung low in the west painting the valley gold, and the moon already rose pale in the east, a traveler appeared on the terrace. He was an old man named Korai, cloaked in simple gray, carrying no staff or bag. His face was calm, as though he had walked straight out of the fading light. Akira tensed. Few found this ruined palace. Fewer still approached the empress unannounced. Yet Korai bowed with quiet respect and stood beside her, gazing at the sky. For a long while, neither spoke. Then Korai said softly, "The sun and moon share the sky tonight. Do you see them fighting?" Akira glanced at him sharply. "They do not fight. They simply are, one fading, one rising." "Yet many believe one must be better," Korai replied. "Day people praise the sun for warmth and growth. Night people praise the moon for rest and mystery. Each side claims the other is lesser." Akira's voice tightened. "Some qualities are better. Compassion over cruelty. Generosity over greed. Light over darkness. Korai nodded. And yet without darkness, how would we see the stars? Without night, how would the day-weary rest? Without winter, how would spring be cherished? He turned to her fully. Tell me, Empress, when the sun rules alone, does the world thrive completely? Akira thought of endless summer days, crops burning, rivers drying, people exhausted by unrelenting heat. No, she admitted. And when the moon rules alone? She pictured endless winter nights, fields barren, spirits low, the cold seeping into bones. No. Korai gestured to the horizon where the last arc of sun touched the mountains, while the full moon already cast silver across the eastern sky. Right now, both lights are present. Neither cancels the other. The sun gives its final warmth. The moon offers its cool clarity. Together, they create this moment, neither pure day nor pure night, yet complete. Akira felt the inner voices stir. I have done great good, she said quietly. And I have done necessary evil. I celebrate one and despise the other. I try to strengthen the light and destroy the shadow. But the shadow never dies. I am forever divided. Kurai's eyes held gentle understanding. You are like those who believe the sun must banish the moon forever. Or the moon must eclipse the sun. But the sky is large enough for both. He told a quiet story. Long ago, the sun grew proud. I bring life, it declared to the moon. I make flowers open, rivers flow, people work and laugh. Without me, all would freeze in darkness. I am essential. The moon listened without reply. Then it spoke. You give warmth, yes. But you also scorch the earth. You blind those who stare too long. You never see the hidden beauty that emerges only when you depart, the quiet blooming of night flowers, the dreams that restore weary hearts, the depths that can only be known in cool stillness. The sun had never considered this. It believed darkness was merely absence, something to conquer. But that night, as it set, the sun watched the world it had illuminated all day transform under moonlight. It saw creatures stir that slept in its glare. It saw stars appear like silent witnesses. It saw lovers walk unafraid of harsh light, secrets shared in gentle glow. For the first time, the sun understood, night was not its enemy. It was its completion. Korai fell silent. Akira stared at the twin lights. The sun slipped below the horizon, leaving a final band of fire. The moon rose higher, bathing the ruins in silver. I fear that if I accept my shadow, she whispered, I will become it. That cruelty will overpower compassion. That the darkness I've done will define me. Korai shook his head. The moon does not become the sun when accepted. It remains the moon, cool, reflective, revealing what harsh light cannot. Your shadow qualities, discernment that looks like judgment, strength that looks like ruthlessness, ambition that looks like greed, these are not evil. They are moonlight. Necessary. Informative. Part of the whole pattern. He stepped closer. The practice is not to eliminate half of yourself. It is to become the sky, vast enough to hold both lights without division. Akira's voice trembled. How do I stop the war? Notice when the sun voice arises, pride in your goodness. Welcome it. Then notice when the moon voice arises, shame at your flaws. Welcome it too. Ask each, what do you show me that the other cannot? She closed her eyes. Memories came, the mercy that ended wars, and the decisive strike that made mercy possible. The compassion that fed nations, and the ambition that built the storehouses. The light and shadow intertwined, inseparable. For the first time, she did not push one away. Something vast opened within her, not resolution of the conflict, but space for both. When she opened her eyes, the sun had fully set. The moon ruled the sky, bright and unapologetic. Yet the world was not dark. Stars gleamed. The valley glowed softly. Night revealed its own beauty. Korai bowed and turned to leave. Akira called after him. Will the war ever end? He paused at the top of the stairs. The war ends when you stop fighting it. Sun and moon do not battle. They dance. One yields so the other may shine. Then yields again. Eternal partners in the turning of time. Then he descended into the moonlight and was gone. Akira remained on the terrace until dawn. When the sun rose the next morning, she greeted it without denying the night that had passed. When night returned, she welcomed the moon without fearing the day to come. The voices still spoke, light praising itself, shadow whispering doubt. But now she listened as the sky listens, spacious, impartial, whole. No longer divided. Complete. Music swells, strings rising in harmony, bells ringing once in deep acceptance, then fading into quiet night. This tale strikes at the heart of self-division. We wage inner war trying to be only light, only good, banishing our shadow as if it were enemy. Yet true peace is not victory of one side over the other. It is becoming the vast sky, large enough to hold both sun and moon, both celebrated strengths and difficult truths. Your shadow is not your flaw. It is your moonlight, revealing depths harsh light cannot touch, offering qualities daylight overlooks. When you stop trying to eliminate half your nature, the war ends. Not because the shadow vanishes, but because you are no longer its opponent. You become whole. If this chapter illuminated even a corner of your own inner twilight, if it softened the battle between your lights, please like this video and subscribe to Versus Whisperer. Your presence helps these stories reach those still fighting their shadows. Turn on notifications, the path continues. Rest deeply tonight. May you hold both your sun and moon in the vast sky of your being. Chapter 6, The Ronin and the Frozen Peak. Music rises, cold wind howling through high passes, distant ice cracking, a single deep horn echoing across vast silence. High in the eternal snows where no trees grow and the air itself bites like steel, there stood a solitary peak known as the Blade. Its slopes were sheer ice and black rock, its summit hidden in perpetual cloud. Few attempted the climb. Fewer returned. Legends claimed that those who crossed its frozen heart faced what they had buried deepest, and either thawed, or remained ice forever. Here came Daikai, once a feared ronin whose katana had carved a path of vengeance across the land. Masterless after his lord's betrayal, he had hunted the traitors one by one. Each kill precise, merciless. When the last fell, Daikai expected peace. Instead, emptiness followed. Worse, numbness. He felt nothing. Not pride in justice served. Not grief for lives taken. Not even rage anymore. Just cold. For 8 years he wandered, seeking feeling in sake, duels, women, solitude. Nothing pierced the ice that had formed around his heart. One bitter winter, guided by half-forgotten tales, Daikai climbed toward the Blade. The ascent took days. Winds howled like the screams he no longer heard in dreams. Ice glazed his beard. Each step required chipping holes with his short axe. But he pressed on, driven by the faint hope that at the summit he might finally feel something, anything. On the third night, he reached a high shelf just below the cloud line. There stood the ruins of an ancient hermitage, half buried in snow. A single stone wall remained, offering meager shelter. Daikai built no fire, there was no wood. He simply sat against the wall, wrapped in his cloak, watching snow swirl in the moonlight. Sleep came fitfully. And in that half-dream state, the ice within him cracked. Memories long frozen surged upward. His mother's face the day his lord's soldiers burned their village. His young sister's hand slipping from his as flames took her. His lord's false smile when Daikai swore loyalty. The betrayal that followed. The years of blood that turned him into something colder than the mountain itself. He woke gasping, chest heaving. For the first time in years, tears froze on his cheeks. But the thaw brought no relief, only pain. Raw, searing. He wanted to bury it again. To return to numbness. It hurt less. Yet something drew him onward. At dawn, he climbed the final ridge. The summit was a narrow blade of ice, barely wide enough for 2 men to stand. Clouds parted briefly, revealing an endless sea of peaks glittering under weak sun. Daikai stood alone at the top of the world. And there, in the utter silence, he felt the full weight of what he had frozen. Grief for his family, never properly mourned, channeled instead into vengeance. Rage at betrayal, turned outward until nothing remained to feel. Guilt for the lives ended in his pursuit, not all traitors, some merely in the way. Fear that beneath the ice, he was hollow. The emotions crashed like avalanches, threatening to sweep him from the peak. He nearly turned back. Then a voice, calm, ancient, spoke from behind. You crossed the frozen lake within yourself. Few make it this far. Daikai whirled, hand on sword hilt. An old woman stood on the ice, wrapped in white furs, her face weathered like the mountain itself. She carried no rope, no axe, yet she stood steady as stone. "How did you?" Daikai began. "I have always been here," she said, waiting for those who reached the summit still carrying their ice. She stepped closer. The wind did not touch her. Daichi's voice cracked. "I thought vengeance would warm me. Then numbness. Now this pain, I cannot bear it." The old woman knelt and brushed snow from the ice, revealing clear depths below. Far down, dark water moved, slow, alive. "See the lake beneath," she said. "Frozen on the surface, yet the water still flows. Never gone. Only held." She placed her bare hand on the ice. Where she touched, faint cracks spread, not breaking, but releasing faint vapor, like breath. "Your heart is like this peak. Ice formed for protection, after loss, after betrayal. It kept you alive. Let you act when feeling would have paralyzed. But ice is not healed. It is paused." Daikai sank to his knees. The pain intensified, grief, guilt, fear all rising. "I froze them to survive," he whispered. "If I feel them now, they will destroy me." The woman's eyes held compassion. "Or free you." She stood. "Walk with me." Together they crossed the narrow summit. With each step, Daikai felt the thaw deepen. He spoke, haltingly at first, of his mother's laugh, his sister's small hand, the smell of burning thatch. Of oaths broken. Of blood that never washed off. The woman listened without judgment. Halfway across, he stopped. Sobs shook him, deep, wrenching, the kind that come from places long sealed. He expected to shatter. Instead, something else happened. As tears fell and froze on the ice, warmth spread through his chest. Not comfort, but aliveness. The pain did not vanish. But beneath it, he felt the water moving again, his own heart, fluid, capable of feeling. When the storm of emotion passed, he looked up. The clouds had parted fully. Sunlight struck the peak, turning ice to diamond. The old woman smiled. "You did not break the ice with force. You brought your warmth to it, your willingness to feel. That is what thaws." Daikai breathed deep. The air still burned, but now it felt clean. "Will the ice return?" he asked. "It may form again in new winters," she replied. "But now you know, beneath it, the water flows. You are not the frozen surface. You are the depth, alive even in coldest times." She turned to leave. Daikai called after her. "Who are you?" She paused at the ridge. "The part of you that remembers warmth. Return here in your heart whenever the ice threatens. Bring your breath, your attention, your courage to feel. The thaw begins there." Then she descended into the clouds and was gone. Daikai remained on the summit until night. Stars appeared, more than he had ever seen. The pain lingered, but now it moved through him like slow water under ice. When he finally descended days later, he moved differently. Not healed completely, the losses remained, the guilt, the memories. But no longer frozen. He could feel the cold without becoming it. Music swells, wind softening, ice cracking gently, resolving into deep, living silence. This tale pierces the armor many of us wear. We freeze our pain to survive, grief, trauma, shame, rage. We call it strength. Moving on. But frozen is not resolved. The peak teaches a braver truth. True strength is the courage to thaw. To bring warm attention, awareness, willingness to feel, to what we buried. The ice does not vanish overnight. Winters return. But beneath the surface, something remains alive, fluid, inexhaustible. You are not the frozen places. You are the depth that holds them, the awareness that can watch pain without becoming it. When old cold rises, do not fight it. Bring your warmth, breath, presence, gentle noticing. The thaw begins there. If this chapter melted even a small place within you, if it touched frozen ground you carry, please like this video and subscribe to Versus Whisperer. Your light helps these stories reach those still locked in winter. Turn on notifications, the ascent continues. Rest deeply tonight. May warmth find whatever remains frozen in you. Chapter 7. The Scholar and the Living Garden. Deep in an ancient forest where sunlight filtered through layers of green, there stood a hidden monastery surrounded by gardens that seemed older than the buildings themselves. Vines climbed stone walls, flowers bloomed in impossible seasons, and every path curved as though following the will of the plants rather than human design. Here lived Haruto, a scholar monk who had spent 30 years mastering texts. He knew the sutras by heart, could recite commentaries from masters across centuries, and debate the subtlest points of doctrine with effortless precision. Younger monks came from distant temples to study with him. His mind was a vast library, ordered, brilliant, admired. Yet something gnawed at him. Despite all his knowledge, he felt unchanged. Meditation brought temporary calm, but old patterns returned: impatience with slow students, pride when praised, restlessness during silent retreats. He understood emptiness intellectually, but did not taste it. He could explain non-attachment, yet clung to his reputation as a great scholar. One spring morning, Haruto sought out Elder Tetsuo, the monastery's gardener. Tetsuo was nearly 70, his back bent from decades of labor, his hands permanently stained with earth. He spoke little, preferring the company of plants to people. Haruto found him kneeling among young tomato seedlings, carefully thinning them. "Elder," Haruto said, bowing, "I have studied for decades. I know the teachings backward and forward. Yet I feel no deeper than when I began. My mind is full of wisdom, but my heart remains the same. How do I move from knowing about the path to walking it?" Tetsuo did not look up. He gently pulled a weak seedling, roots and all, setting it aside. "Come," he said. "Work with me today." Haruto hesitated. Scholars did not garden, but he knelt beside Tetsuo. Tetsuo handed him a small trowel. First, weeds. They worked in silence. Haruto pulled visible weeds quickly, efficiently. But Tetsuo moved slower, examining each plant, sometimes leaving what Haruto thought were weeds. "Why leave those?" Haruto asked. Tetsuo pointed to a plant with jagged leaves. "This looks like a weed, but it repels insects that harm the vegetables. That 1 inch," he touched another, "fixes nitrogen in the soil, feeding its neighbors. Some weeds serve the garden." Haruto nodded, filing this away as knowledge. They moved to pruning roses. Tetsuo cut away diseased branches with decisive strokes, then thinned healthy ones. Haruto frowned. "You remove even living growth." "Yes," Tetsuo said. "If left, the plant wastes energy on weak branches. Pruning directs strength to what bears the best flowers." Next, they watered delicate new shoots under a shade cloth. "These need protection," Tetsuo explained. "Too much sun now would burn them. But in a month, we remove the cloth. They must grow strong enough to face full light." Haruto began to see patterns. Finally, they sat in the late sun, overlooking the garden. Tetsuo spoke. "You wait for a thunderbolt, sudden enlightenment that transforms everything. But transformation is like this garden. Slow. Daily. Patient." He gestured to the beds. "No single day of weeding clears the garden forever. No single pruning perfects the rose. No single watering makes the seedling strong. It is the quiet accumulation, small acts repeated faithfully, that creates the conditions for growth." Haruto felt resistance. "But the masters speak of sudden awakening." Tetsuo smiled. "And after awakening, did they stop tending their gardens? Awakening is not the end. It is the beginning of real work." He pointed to different sections. "These mature trees, your accumulated knowledge. Valuable, but they need pruning too. Old beliefs that no longer serve must be cut away. These young seedlings, new insights, new practices. Fragile. They need daily care, protection from harsh judgment. These weeds, habits of pride, impatience. Some must be pulled completely. Others, like discernment or ambition, can be redirected to nourish growth." Haruto looked at his own hands, now dirt-stained. "I thought practice was about achieving a state. Perfect calm. Constant mindfulness. No more flaws." Tetsuo shook his head. "The garden is never finished. Even in winter, roots deepen beneath the surface. Seeds rest. Soil gathers strength. This too is practice, trusting unseen growth. He stood, brushing soil from his robes. Your mind is already a rich garden, Haruto. Stop waiting for it to become something else. Tend it daily. Pull what harms. Water what you wish to grow. Prune what drains. Protect new beginnings. Trust the seasons. That evening, Haruto sat in meditation differently. When pride arose at a clever thought, he noticed it like a weed, gently pulled, or redirected. When impatience surged with a slow chant, he watered patience with breath. When doubt whispered that he was not progressing, he remembered winter roots. Days turned to weeks. He spent mornings in the garden with Tetsuo, afternoons teaching, evenings in stillness. No thunderbolt came. But slowly, almost invisibly, something shifted. His teaching became less about displaying knowledge, more about listening. His meditation less about achieving calm, more about meeting whatever arose. His pride softened, not gone, but pruned. One morning, Tetsuo found Haruto already weeding before dawn. The elder smiled. You understand now. Haruto paused, hands in soil. I was waiting for harvest before planting daily. Wanting the garden complete before doing the work. Tetsuo nodded. And now? Now I tend. Day by day. Trusting growth happens in its own time, in its own way. They worked side by side as light crept through the leaves. The garden bloomed, imperfect, ever-changing, alive. Music swells gently, leaves rustling, birdsong rising, then settling into peaceful rhythm. This tale roots itself in a truth many seekers miss. We long for dramatic transformation, a single moment that changes everything forever. When it doesn't come, we doubt the path. But the garden teaches patient wisdom. Real change is not lightning. It is sunlight, water, soil, daily acts of care accumulated over seasons. Your mind is already a living garden. Full of knowledge, habits, potentials, weeds. Practice is tending, noticing what nourishes, what harms. Protecting fragile new growth. Pruning what no longer serves. Trusting unseen deepening even in barren times. There is no final perfect state. Only faithful tending through every season. If this chapter planted even a small seed within you, if it encouraged your daily tending, please like this video and subscribe to Versus Whisperer. Your presence helps these living teachings reach more gardens in need. Turn on notifications, the growth continues. Rest well tonight. May you trust the quiet work happening beneath the surface. Chapter 8, The Wanderer and the Mountain Valley. In the heart of an immense mountain range where clouds parted only for the highest summits, there lived a wanderer named Kenji who followed a solitary practice. Each dawn he climbed to the highest visible ridge, sitting in silence as the world spread below him in endless layers of stone and sky. Each afternoon he descended into the deep valleys, walking among villages, helping where needed, sharing meals, listening to sorrows and joys. For 20 years this rhythm had shaped his life, mountain in the morning, valley in the evening. He sought no monastery, no master, only the balance between height and depth. One autumn, a young seeker named Miko followed rumors of this wanderer and found him on a high meadow just below the snowline. She was 25, bright and earnest, having spent years in intense meditation halls pursuing insight into emptiness and the nature of self. She had tasted vast spaciousness in long retreats, but felt disconnected from ordinary life, cold, abstract, unable to meet people's pain with true warmth. Kenji was sitting on a flat rock, facing the rising sun as it touched distant peaks. Miko bowed and waited. After a time, Kenji spoke without turning. You climbed far. What do you seek? Miko sat nearby. I have seen the vast view, the interconnectedness, the emptiness of separate self. Problems seem small from that height. Yet when I return to people, I freeze. Their suffering feels unreal, or too much. I want balance. Kenji nodded. Then climb with me tomorrow. And descend. The next morning, before light, they began the ascent together. The path was steep, requiring hands as much as feet. Miko's breath burned in the thin air, but Kenji moved steadily, unhurried. At the summit ridge, they sat as the sun rose. Below them, valleys lay hidden in mist. Rivers were invisible threads. villages mere specks. Kenji spoke softly. From here, what do you notice? Miko closed her eyes, then opened them. Everything connected. Weather forming far away affects the whole. Individual struggles, tiny movements in a vast pattern. My own story feels small, almost illusory. Yes, Kenji said. This view prevents us from drowning in personal drama. We see suffering arises from conditions, not as unique punishment. It brings spaciousness. Peace. They sat in that spaciousness until the sun warmed the rocks. Then Kenji stood. Now we descend. The way down was slower, knees aching, attention on each step. By midday they reached a valley village nestled beside a rushing stream. Smoke rose from hearths. Children laughed. An old woman wept quietly outside her home. Her husband had died in the night. Kenji led Miko there. They sat with the woman. Kenji held her hand. Listened to stories of 50 years shared. Helped prepare the body. Carried wood for the pyre. Miko felt the grief acutely, raw, immediate, undeniable. That evening, as they walked to Kenji's simple shelter, Miko spoke. On the mountain, her loss seemed part of a larger pattern, impermanence affecting all. But here, it is her entire world. How can both be true? Kenji stopped beneath stars beginning to appear. Both are true. Neither complete alone. He gestured upward to the dark peaks now silhouetted against the sky. Some stay only on the mountain. They touch vast awareness, see through the illusion of separate self. But they grow cold. Suffering becomes ultimately unreal, so compassion withers. They have height without warmth. Then he pointed to the village lights glowing in the valley. Others stay only in the valley. They serve endlessly, feeding the hungry, sitting with the dying. But without the high view, they drown in details. Endless need exhausts them. They burn out. Miko listened, feeling the truth settle. Kenji continued. The full path moves between. Morning on the mountain, remembering vastness, refreshing perspective, preventing obsession with personal story. Afternoon in the valley, giving full heart to this moment, this person, this pain, as if it were the only reality. Over the following weeks, Miko followed the rhythm. Mornings, climbing high, sitting in expansive silence. Touching the impersonal vastness where individual sorrow dissolved into larger patterns. Afternoons, descending into particular lives. Helping repair a roof after storm. Holding a child fevered in the night. Sharing tea with lonely elders. Gradually, balance grew. In the valley, the morning spaciousness kept her from drowning. She could hold grief without being consumed, knowing it arose and would pass. On the mountain, the afternoon's warmth kept her practice human. She carried faces, stories, the weight of real tears into the vast view, preventing detachment from becoming indifference. One evening, after a day spent comforting a family whose harvest had failed, Miko and Kenji sat watching stars emerge. I understand now, she said quietly. The mountain gives perspective so I can serve without burning out. The valley gives heart so my insight does not grow cold. Kenji smiled. And notice, each nourishes the other. Height without depth becomes barren. Depth without height becomes swamp. Miko felt wholeness settle, not as a final state, but as movement. Fluid. Alive. Years later, others would speak of the wanderer who moved between mountain and valley, teaching not with words but with rhythm. Some tried to stay only on one or the other. But those who followed the full path discovered a practice both wise and warm, vast enough to hold the impersonal truth, grounded enough to meet each tear as sacred. Music swells, horns echoing across peaks, then softening into valley stillness. This tale reveals the heart of complete practice. We often choose one perspective, vast detachment or engaged compassion, as if they opposed each other. But wholeness lies in movement between. The mountain view, seeing interconnection, impermanence, the constructed nature of suffering, prevents us from being lost in drama or overwhelmed by need. The valley engagement, meeting this moment, this person, this pain with full presence, prevents insight from becoming cold abstraction. One without the other is incomplete. Stay only in vastness, wisdom without heart. Stay only in particulars, heart without wisdom. Move between, wisdom that serves, heart that endures. If this chapter helped you feel the balance between height and depth in your own life, please like this video and subscribe to Versus Whisperer. Your support carries these stories to those seeking equilibrium. Turn on notifications. 2 chapters remain. Rest well tonight. May you move gracefully between mountain and valley within your own heart. Chapter 9, The Poet and the Cherry Seed. At the foot of a sacred mountain stood an ancient monastery whose library was famed across the land. Stone walls rose high, sheltering thousands of scrolls and books, sutras, commentaries, poems, histories, gathered over 1,000 years. Monks came from afar to study, to copy, to debate the finest points of doctrine. Among them was Akira, a poet-monk of 35, renowned for his memory and intellect. He could recite entire volumes without error, quote masters from every era, and weave their words into elegant arguments. Teachers praised his brilliance. Students sought his guidance. His mind was a treasure house of borrowed wisdom. Yet at night, alone in his cell, Akira felt hollow. All the knowledge he carried seemed like echoes, beautiful, precise, but not his own voice. He understood awakening through descriptions, but had never tasted it. He feared that beneath his learning lay only emptiness, and that if he stopped accumulating words, nothing real would remain. One winter afternoon, Akira approached Elder Jiro, the monastery's quiet abbot. Jiro was 70, his eyes clear as still water, his presence unassuming. He spent little time in the library, preferring the small courtyard where a single cherry tree grew. "Master," Akira said, bowing deeply, "I have studied for 20 years. I know the teachings of every great mind. Yet I remain unchanged, proud when praised, anxious when forgotten, restless in silence. How do I turn knowledge into genuine understanding?" Jiro studied him for a long moment, then reached into his sleeve and drew out a single cherry seed, small, hard, unremarkable. He placed it in Akira's palm. "This will be your teacher," Jiro said. Akira stared, confused. "A seed?" Jiro nodded. "Plant it. Tend it. Learn from it. When you understand what it has to show you, return." Akira wanted to protest. This seemed beneath a scholar, but respect silenced him. He found a sheltered corner of the courtyard, dug a small hole in the frozen soil, and planted the seed. He marked the spot with a stone. Days became weeks. Nothing happened. The ground remained bare. Akira continued his studies, but each morning he checked the spot, watering even when snow covered it. Weeks became months. Spring arrived, snow melted, other cherries bloomed across the mountain, yet his seed showed no sign. Impatience grew. Perhaps the seed is dead. Perhaps the teaching is that some things never grow. Still, he watered. He protected the spot from careless feet. One summer morning, 3 months after planting, Akira knelt to weed the courtyard and noticed the tiniest green shoot pushing through the soil, fragile, pale, barely visible. Joy surged, followed immediately by analysis. The seed was dormant. Roots formed unseen. Energy gathered in darkness. He rushed to tell Jiro. The abbot was sitting beneath the old cherry tree, drinking tea. "The seed has sprouted," Akira said, breathless. Jiro smiled faintly. "Has it? Or did it begin growing the day you planted it?" Akira paused. "Below the surface, yes. Unseen." Jiro nodded. "And what else have you noticed?" Akira reflected. In the months of tending bare soil, something in him had shifted. His usual mental commentary, the constant comparison to great masters, the pride in recitation, the fear of being ordinary, had quieted, not from effort, but from the simple daily act of caring for something that showed no result. He had watered without expectation of praise. He had protected the spot without anyone noticing. He had continued when doubt whispered it was pointless. "I waited for visible progress," Akira said slowly. "For proof that my practice was working. But the real growth was happening where I could not see, in patience, in humility, in doing the work without reward." Jiro offered him tea. Knowledge is like the seed before planting, full of potential, but dormant. It can be recited, debated, admired. Yet until it is planted in the soil of direct experience, it remains only potential. He gestured to the sprout. Your studies gave you the seed, perfect, complete. But seeds cannot skip the darkness. They must soften, crack, send roots into unknown depths. Only then does the tree emerge. Akira asked, how do I plant the teachings in my own experience? Jairo replied, stop checking for growth. Stop comparing your sprout to ancient trees. Each day, simply tend, notice what is actually here, thoughts, sensations, emotions, without immediately clothing them in borrowed words. When pride arises, do not quote a sutra about pride. Meet the feeling directly. When fear of emptiness comes, do not recall descriptions of true nature. Rest in the not knowing. This direct meeting, this is the soil. This is how you fill your own empty book. Akira bowed deeply. Years passed. The cherry tree grew slowly, first a sapling, then a slender trunk, then branches spreading delicate leaves. Akira continued tending it, but his real tending was inward. He still read, still taught, but now as nourishment, not identity. When students asked profound questions, he sometimes answered with silence, inviting them to meet their own experience. One spring, the young tree bloomed for the first time, pink petals drifting like snow in the courtyard. Akira sat beneath it with Jairo, now frail but serene. I understand, Akira said quietly. I came filled with others' words, proud of my collection. But true wisdom is not accumulated. It is discovered, fresh, personal, born from direct seeing. Jairo nodded. The seed teaches humility. No matter how much it knows about being a tree, it must still surrender to darkness, time, conditions. It cannot force blooming. So too with us. We provide the conditions, daily attention, honest meeting of experience, and trust the natural unfolding. Petals fell softly around them. Akira smiled. I thought I needed more knowledge. But I needed less clinging to what I already knew, more space for what only my own life could reveal. The tree stood in full blossom, ordinary, perfect, alive. Music swells gently, petals in wind, strings rising in quiet joy, then fading into deep stillness. This tale speaks to every seeker who mistakes accumulated knowledge for lived wisdom. We collect teachings like treasures, quotes, insights, methods, believing more will finally make us whole. But the seed reveals a humbler truth. Knowledge has potential, yet remains dormant until planted in direct experience. Real understanding arises not from adding more words, but from meeting life freshly, without the constant filter of what we've read or heard. Trust the darkness. Tend daily without demanding visible growth. Your own empty book awaits, not to be filled with copies, but with honest marks from your unique journey. The tree that grows is yours alone. If this chapter cracked even a small shell around your accumulated knowing, if it invited you toward your own direct seeing, please like this video and subscribe to Versus Whisperer. Your presence helps these seeds reach more hearts ready to plant. Turn on notifications. One final chapter remains. Rest deeply tonight. May something within you soften, root, and begin its quiet growth. Chapter 10. The Painter and the Hidden Well. Along a remote stretch of coast where cliffs rose sharp from the sea, a small village clung to the land. At its heart stood an ancient stone well, its mouth wide encircled by weathered rock. 4 generations it had given clear, cold water, sweet in drought, steady in storm. Villagers drew from it daily, yet few thought of the hidden spring far below that fed it without cease. In a modest house overlooking the well lived Master Sohei, a painter of 70 winters. His scrolls, simple scenes of sea, sky, village life, were prized across provinces for their quiet depth. People said his brush captured what eyes usually missed, the aliveness beneath ordinary things. Yet few knew Sohei's daily practice. Every morning before light, while the village slept, he walked to the well carrying an old wooden bucket on a hemp rope. He lowered it slowly, hand over hand, until, far below, the soft splash told him it had reached the water. Then he drew it up, heavy with the day's first gift. He never hurried. Never spilled a drop. The act was complete in itself. One spring dawn, a young painter named Ray arrived from the capital. At 28, she was already famous for intricate temple murals, dragons coiling through clouds, bodhisattvas radiant with gold. Critics praised her skill, her imagination, her dramatic vision. But Ray felt empty. Her paintings dazzled, yet left her cold. She chased ever grander subjects, more elaborate techniques, hoping the next masterpiece would finally touch something real. Instead, exhaustion grew. Hearing of Sohei's quiet mastery, she traveled to learn his secret. She found him at the well just as the bucket broke the surface, brimming clear. Ray bowed deeply. "Master, your paintings move the heart in ways mine never do. I have technique, vision, acclaim, yet my work feels distant. Teach me how to paint what truly lives." Sohei studied her for a long moment, then handed her the dripping bucket. "Draw water with me tomorrow before dawn." Ray frowned. This was not the teaching she expected, but she nodded. The next morning, in darkness, they stood at the well. Sohei gestured for her to lower the bucket. Ray gripped the rope and let it down quickly. The bucket hit the water with a loud splash, swung wildly, half-emptied itself on the walls. When she hauled it up, it came only 3/4 full, spilling more on the stones. Sohei said nothing. He simply took the rope and lowered his own bucket, slowly, steadily. The descent was silent. The splash gentle. The ascent smooth. The bucket emerged perfectly full, not a drop lost. They repeated this each morning for a week. Ray's bucket always came up wanting, spilling, swinging, half-empty. Sohei's always brimmed. Finally, frustration broke her silence. "Master, why teach me to draw water? I came to learn painting." Sohei smiled. "And what do you think I paint?" He led her to his studio. Scrolls lay unrolled, a single wave curling, a fisherman's weathered hand, moonlight on the well stones. Each brushstroke spare, yet alive with presence. "These are not inventions," he said. "They are what remains when I draw from depth." He returned to the well with her at midday, when sun struck straight down the shaft. "Look," he said. Ray peered over the edge. Far below, darkness. Only faint glimmers hinted at water. "The surface is easy," Sohei said. "Puddles after rain, streams on the cliff, quick to reach, quickly mudded, quickly dry. Many painters draw from there. Their work is flashy, dramatic, but shallow. It dazzles briefly, then evaporates." He lowered the bucket slowly. "The deep well requires effort. You must let go of hurry. Feel the weight change as you descend through empty air. Listen for the moment water is touched. Draw up without forcing, without spilling what has been given." The bucket rose full, gleaming. "This water is always pure," he continued. "Filtered through stone, cooled by earth, fed by a spring no eye has seen. It never runs dry because it comes from depth." Ray began to understand. "My paintings," she whispered, "are puddle water, loud, colorful, quickly gathered from surface impressions. They impress, but do not quench." Sohei nodded. "To paint from depth, you must practice reaching depth." He taught her simply. In meditation, let attention sink past surface thoughts, the planning, judging, comparing mind, down through layers of habit and reaction, until it touched something quieter, clearer, always present. In daily life, meet each moment fully, wind on skin, sound of waves, ache in shoulders, without immediately naming or dramatizing it. In painting, stop chasing grand subjects. Sit with ordinary things, a cracked cup, rope fibers, light on water, and let the brush move from that settled depth. Ray stayed months. At first, sinking attention felt impossible. Surface mind churned endlessly, ideas for murals, memories of praise, fears of failure. But daily at the well, she practiced the descent, slow, patient, listening. Gradually, attention learned the way. One morning, she lowered the bucket perfectly. No splash, no swing, no spill. It rose brimming, steady. That afternoon, she painted for the first time in months. Not a dragon or bodhisattva. Just the well itself, stones, rope, a single drop falling back into shadow. The scroll was simple. Yet those who saw it later wept without knowing why. Ray remained with Sohei another year. When she finally left, she carried no new techniques, only the daily practice of reaching depth. Her later paintings became quieter, more ordinary in subject. Yet they quenched something deep in those who beheld them. Because they were drawn from the hidden well, the inexhaustible source beneath surface turmoil. The source that was always there, waiting for the bucket to descend far enough. Music swells, waves deepening, rope creaking softly, then resolving into profound, refreshing silence. This final tale reveals the essence of all that came before. We chase surface brilliance, dramatic insights, grand experiences, elaborate techniques, hoping they will finally satisfy. But true depth is quieter, closer, always available. It asks only that we lower the bucket, release hurry, sink past surface chatter, touch the clear awareness beneath. Not once, but daily. From that depth, whatever arises, painting, speaking, listening, living, carries the taste of something pure, steady, alive. The well is within you. The water never runs dry. You need only practice the slow, faithful descent. If this journey of 10 chapters has touched the hidden spring within you, if even one story helped you lower your bucket a little deeper, please like this video and subscribe to Versus Whisperer. Your presence keeps these whispers alive for hearts still searching at the surface. Turn on notifications, new journeys begin soon. Thank you for walking this path with us. Rest deeply tonight. May you draw from your own inexhaustible depth, now and always.